Hello and welcome to Thursday of week 2 of the summer series. I think of 5 weeks. I think we're going to try and do every day. It's good to be back. Did you catch the gig last night? It was fantastic. We've got a band from New York playing next Wednesday, and we'll promote that ahead of time so you can enjoy that too. Also, we actually thought we might miss one day out of all the 5 weeks. It's next Friday. I was supposed to be getting married in the Czech Republic in 2 days' time. I was supposed to be there right now, drinking Czech beer and getting excited, but that didn't happen for obvious reasons. So I'm trying to elope with my future wife somewhere in England next weekend with just my parents. So we thought we might not be able to do next Friday. We've just hopefully partnered with an awesome company called The Surgery and Carly Murray to bring an anti-racist panel debate they're doing that day. So we'll actually be bringing it through the summer series too. So we will maintain our daily presence for you. And that's something that's really important too. It's also been a huge day at Inspiring Workplaces. As you know, or may not know, part of this business for 6 years was the Employee Engagement Awards. And we've just announced our first ever finalists in the renamed Inspiring Workplaces Awards. In North America for 2020. So congratulations to all those organizations that have been shortlisted. You can find out who they are on our stories section as well. And we'll be announcing winners next month, virtually, of course. From a 2021 perspective, we're actually open worldwide for entries next month too. So Australasia, North America, and EMEA. But to today and to our next session, I've known this speaker for many years. I don't use the word guru liberally, but I think Aimee is a guru when it comes to experience. I think Aimee is presented at one of our events every single year, whether it be Sydney, Chicago, New York, London, for 5 years. And the content is always current, updated research, and you walk away learning more. So without further ado, going to talk us through the human experience cycle, Senior Principal Analyst at the XM Institute for Qualtrics. Please welcome Aimee Lucas. Hello, Aimee.
Hi, Matt. How are you today? Hi, everybody else. Hope you all are.
I'm pretty awesome. Thank you very much. It's great to see you. In Florida, I think you are. And so, just crossing the Atlantic.
Just a stone's throw away.
Just a stone's throw. We're probably rivaling Floridian weather just a little bit. There's sunshine anyway, so that's a good thing.
That's all.
Anyway, I'll let you get into the human experience cycle. Thanks so much, and I'll come back later.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much, Matt, and thanks everybody. Again, I'm Aimee Lucas, and I'm an analyst at the Qualtrics XM Institute, and I am delighted to be here today. We're together here in this session because we are inspired by the work of inspiring employees and those around us. And I turn to a trusty thesaurus to round out, what does it mean to inspire another person? And there are some really great words here, words that I hope that I myself, create in others when they're working with me. But the truth of the matter is, experiences are judged in the eye of the beholder. I can work really hard and believe that this presentation is inspiring and worth the time that you're taking in the middle, the beginning, the end of your day on a Thursday. But the ultimate judge of any experience are the people involved in it. The ultimate judge of this presentation are you who are watching this. And that's why I picked today's topic for this session, the human experience cycle. Because when we think about how things work, people can react quite differently to the same experience. Think about a concert back when we used to be able to go to them. Some people can have a really fabulous time dancing. Other people will be complaining about how loud the music is. In our workplaces, some employees may really love a new online training program, while others will miss the interactivity of in-person training sessions. Some employees might find an internal website really easy to navigate and understand, while others might be frustrated trying to get something done. So to be successful in designing and delivering great experiences to people, we've got to understand experiences. And we can only understand experiences if we understand how people process them. And we understand how people process experiences by looking at what we call the human experience cycle. So I'll take you through that today. Because in reality, experiences are our interface with the world. It is the one and only way we as human beings interface out there, outside of us. We create, we consume, and we remember experiences. That's really what we're all about. If you want to communicate or influence someone, it requires some experiences. If you want to teach or love someone, it requires some experiences. If you want to learn something or enjoy something, it requires some experiences. If you want to sell or provide services to someone, it requires some experiences. So if you think about what this means, while organizations might all have different missions, different values, different structures, at the end of the day, one thing that they have in common is that they all create experiences. Organizations' impact on the world is really based on the experiences they're creating for their employees, for their customers, and for the other stakeholders that interact with them. So let's start by answering the question, what exactly is experience? We talk about it all the time. I especially talk about it all the time. But what is it exactly? It's really not very complex. When you go to the dictionary, one of the sort of definitions that you'll see repeated pretty regularly across different sources is that an experience is a collection of sensory inputs. That's it. It's not a very remarkable definition, but these experiences happen again and again and again and again, and that is pretty remarkable. Our lives are really just a sequence of experiences that are strung together, built on each other, and those experiences can be as mundane as, getting a cup of coffee to start your day, or something as life-changing as giving birth to your first child. And the experiences can range across the spectrum of importance in between. And so, although many experiences that we have only last a short time, they each can have long-lasting impacts, consequences. They shape our behavior, they shape our attitudes, and they shape our understanding of the world. And so the human experience cycle is a somewhat simplified way to try to get a view of that complex process. And it starts with an experience. That experience could be a conversation between an employee and their manager about a new project that's kicking off. It could be employees attending a company all-hands meeting to hear about an important update, like a reorganization. Or it could be an employee who's reaching out to the internal IT help desk to troubleshoot an issue with their web conferencing software, of all things, right? And while those experiences are happening, we form opinions about the experience. And those opinions are our perceptions of how it went. But the experience, as it's happening, isn't the only thing that shapes how we perceive, that shapes the opinions that we form. We also have expectations that we bring into those interactions that were going on. And our expectations are what we anticipate will happen during that experience. So between the experience in itself and the expectation that we have, it starts to form how we perceive the experience. If you were expecting, for example, Sir Richard Branson to be here right now talking to you about creating inspiring employee experiences, your perception of this experience might not be quite as positive as I hope it'll be at the end of this 30 minutes together. And in many cases, the experiences that we have, and particularly the experiences that we here together care about, are focused on accomplishing something, right? We care about the experiences of our employees, and day in and day out, they're doing many different things, having many different experiences, all in pursuit of accomplishing something. And that's why we're here together under the banner of the Inspiring Workplaces organization. And when we're working towards these types of experiences where we're trying to accomplish a goal, we tend to perceive those across 3 dimensions. And this is really the first big takeaway of the human experience cycle. The first way we sort of judge an experience that we're having is through the lens of success. Could I do what I wanted to do? Could the person having this experience accomplish their goal? The second lens is effort. How easy or hard was it for the person to get through what they wanted to get through during that experience? And the third lens is emotion. How did the experience make them feel? And it turns out emotion is actually the most critical element of these three. It's certainly influenced on whether or not a person is successful and how easy or hard it was for them to do what they wanted to do. But emotion is critical. So we're going to talk about why it's important. It's also critical because it's one that organizations tend to focus on the least, which is why I love a lot of the topics we're talking about here during the summer series. Because when you look underneath, it really is speaking to the emotion and how we're creating places where we're eliciting positive emotions from our employees. So based on those perceptions of success, effort, and emotion, people form attitudes. They form attitudes such as things like, all right, I love this company. I hate my job. I'll recommend this company. What a fun brand, right? And attitudes are somewhat persistent. They're sticky. We have these experiences, we form our perceptions, they shape our attitudes about how we feel, but they can change. They can change as people process additional experiences. Attitudes are important. Many organizations measure attitudes, right? Often in our annual employee engagement survey or similar type of program in their EX metric program. And attitudes are important to understand because they represent that accumulation of multiple perceptions. And those attitudes can often be a leading indicator of what people will do in the future, right? So chances are, if the attitude is, I hate this company, there's probably a pretty good sense that that person is going to be maybe looking for a new job somewhere else. Interestingly enough, although attitudes are shaped by repeated experiences that people have, they can also change without any additional experiences. And this is because of the way our memories as human beings work. And they're actually flawed. We tend to think of our memories like a GoPro camera, as if it was just right there implanted in our brain, collecting an ongoing video footage of our entire lives. And I mean, with all the social media nowadays, it might seem like we're doing that, but our memory certainly isn't, right? Our memory is not recording every single moment exactly as it happens. For most people, our memories are more like Instagram, or for those of you like my age, right, like a Polaroid camera. We get and record moments in our lives that are important or impactful as separate pictures. And a lot of those moments that we record as pictures are the ones that have a strong emotional impact. The emotional highs and the emotional lows of the experiences that we're having. Those are the moments that sort of stick in our memories. And from those pictures, we construct narratives that connect those pictures into a story about the entire experience. Sometimes the result is we remember the experience exactly how it happened. Sometimes we remember the experience in completely different ways. It's why if you get together with your family and start telling stories, two siblings, my brother and I, can tell a story about the same family reunion that we were at and have completely different narratives because what we captured in our memories was different for each other. Now, for me, one example of this is last winter when we had the Olympics in 2018. I got caught up in the excitement, and I found a way, even here in South Florida, to take curling lessons. And I remember the experience as being one where I really had my act together, looking the part, doing the part. But the evidence from the actual pictures taken at the event show that was not really the case. My natural ability level was about 0. I looked pretty ridiculous, but the smile in the pictures is real. It was an emotional high point for me during that time. And when I think back on this experience, I don't remember the cold, I don't remember the bruises from falling. I remember a really fun time and a time that I want to repeat again and probably bring my friends along with it. And so that's why attitudes, memories, perceptions are important because they shape what we remember. And it's our memories that reinforce those attitudes. I love this company. I hate my boss. It shapes what we tell other people. You definitely want to come work for my company. It's a great place to be an employee. And those memories, those attitudes also shape our future behaviors related to those experiences. Those types of attitudes, that my expectations for future curling sessions, all come out right from the attitudes that I have, but those attitudes also drive different behaviors. If you believe a company is a great place to work, you'll try harder, you'll be less likely to look for a job somewhere else, for example. So attitudes are important to understand when we think about the experiences we're creating. Behaviors are the real role. The success or a failure of an organization is driven by what people actually do after the experiences that they have. So over time, right, we need to make sure that the attitudes that companies are measuring in things like their employee engagement surveys are in fact the ones that have an impact on the behaviors that you really care about in your employees. Is your employee engagement score really indicative of levels of voluntary attrition? Or are employees' attitudes about their manager an indicator of their productivity? If that turns out to not be the case, then it may be time to look for different measures of attitudes that are more predictive of the behaviors you're trying to drive. Because ultimately, it's those behaviors that lead to new experiences that people have, or experiences people choose to repeat with, say, the organization that they work for. And that is the human experience cycle. But when we think about where do we start in improving experiences, we often think we want to go back to that beginning and start with the experience, when in fact, we want to start by thinking about what are the behaviors we're trying to elicit. Are we trying to get our managers to adopt a new way of coaching and managing the performance of their employees? Are we trying to get employees to more actively take advantage of a self-service professional development platform that we've put in place? What behaviors are we trying to drive? What behaviors are we trying to create in our employees? And that's the design place that we start when it comes to how do we make experiences better at work. So if we think, for example, let's work our way through an example. We think about a goal of taking new hires, having new hires who are motivated to stay with the company and not engage in behaviors like look for a new job. How do we then make sure that we're, creating an experience that does that? Well, the first thing that we ask ourselves is, if we want employees who are motivated to stay and not look for a new job, what types of attitudes in those new hires will lead those people to the behaviors that we want to see? So we go from thinking about behaviors to then the attitudes we want to create, right? We want to go into, say, the employee insights that we've been gathering to help you answer that question. And take that feedback that you've been getting from new hire employees as they've been joining your organization, and maybe marrying it up to some of the other data that you have about them. Who did their onboarding? Who is their manager? What office or branch or location are they in? And we can use that combination of data to look and uncover some linkages. So are the new hires who share more positive feedback and have a higher intent to stay with the company after their first 90 days, those who work in a specific office or are onboarded by a specific team, compared to new hires who don't report as positive an experience and intent to stay? Are the employees who reach a one-year work anniversary and likely to recommend the company as a great place to work, are they located in certain offices? Are they working in certain types of roles compared to new hires who are leaving before the end of their first year? We want to tap into some of what we're learning from our employees and learning from our systems like our HRIS or HCM system to help uncover that connection of how are people feeling to what are people doing. And once we think about then the attitudes we want to create, we can then take the next step back and say, well, in those experiences they're having, what perceptions are we trying to drive, right? Once again, your data can help. This is a really common area of focus for employee experience programs. If we think about our onboarding example, you can use insights to guide some of that diagnosis work and to specifically say, what does a good onboarding team do based on the feedback from employees and how they're perceiving those onboarding experiences. And we can sort of key in on what's really standing out and making a positive difference. We can go talk to those onboarding teams that already are doing those things, and then we can figure out how to replicate some of those good actions across all of the onboarding teams in hopes that it drives the same types of positive perceptions across all of the new hires who are going through their orientation phase. Taking action to close these types of gaps and experiences really begins with uncovering where those gaps are, diagnosing actions and steps that can be taken, and then engaging the right people in the organization to take those shifts and make those changes so that how people are experiencing onboarding, training, the promotion process, coaching by their manager is adapted to the types of perceptions we want to drive. And we can even use feedback from employees to understand the expectations they bring into their experiences and figure out either how we need to shape those better through what we communicate and what we share, or adjust what we're doing to better meet those expectations that employees have. And once you've done this entire form of experience archaeology, understanding how people are perceiving experiences that drive attitudes that result in the behaviors you're trying to accomplish, then you're really ready to take the next step and say, all right, we know the changes we need to make. Let's redesign this experience. And we know it will be linked all the way to the new behaviors we're trying to deliver that will create an inspiring workplace of our own and lead to better results for your people and your organization. It starts with an experience, but it matters in the eye of the beholder how they perceive it. That ultimately drives their attitudes and future behaviors. If we think about this cycle, and if we thoughtfully try to understand what's happening across this cycle, we as employee experience professionals will be in a place where we can create experiences for people that translate into meaningful results, not only for those employees, but for their managers, the teams, the projects, the organizations, the customers that they touch each and every day. And together, we can tap into something as simple as an experience, a collection of sensory inputs to make our workplaces more inspiring and the world a little bit more remarkable, right from our chairs, right from our desks, right from our computers. And I wish all of that to all of you. And on that note, I'll turn it back over to Matt. Thank you very much.
There you go. My mic was muted. Thank you so much, Aimee. Again, fantastic. Learned a lot. I jinxed us when we were talking before we went on. I said, "Isn't it amazing that the internet didn't fall over during COVID?" And the bandwidth at times just strained a tad, but it was great. We could hear, but just internet conspired, and it was all my fault because I literally said 25 minutes ago, hasn't it been amazing that the internet hasn't toppled over, fallen over in this period? So I'll put my hands up there. I'll keep my mouth shut in future. Like I say, we've worked together and I've seen you speak for 5 years straight. And every time I learn something brand new, and I've learned something brand new. Behaviors. So starting with behaviors, and what type of behaviors we're trying to elicit and drive. How for me, that just seems like such a very hard task to fathom when you think about individuals and we're all different and human beings and we perceive things in different ways. Is there a way of driving a common behavior or that you would to help with the experience?
So there's like a couple of different ways to think about the behaviors when we're considering experiences, right? So one, organizationally, one thing that brings an organization and the people in it together is its purpose, its mission, its values, right? And so typically when those things are in place and done well, there's a common set of behaviors that the organization hopes everybody is demonstrating, right? Yeah. They're respectful of each other, that they're maybe responsive, that they are working hard to deliver accurate, friendly service, whatever might be right for them. So that's one sort of type of behavior that we think about and saying, okay, these different things that we're putting in place across the organization, how are we following that path to ultimately result in those sorts of behaviors? From an employee experience perspective and the teams that are driving that type of work inside an organization, which is not just, you know, an HR or a people operations team, right? Everybody in the organization has a role in shaping great employee experiences, but our internal experts, they're also tasked, but it's sometimes hard to articulate. How do they positively have a strategic impact on the business? And that's through some of those business metrics that they're responsible for, which is either reducing attrition, like keeping the employees we need to keep, because A, it keeps us productive and functioning as an organization. It costs a lot of money to replace employees. We lose productivity, right? So behaviors like not looking for a new job. How do we create experiences that make people want to stay with us? At the manager level, if we want managers to be engaging and delivering a certain feedback in a certain style or in a certain way, how do we need to build experiences that ultimately drive that behavior and use what we're learning in our attempts to do that to fine tune our approaches, right? You know, what perception or what attitude is or isn't helping our managers sort of believe and adopt what we need them to adopt when it comes to coaching their employees, for example. So I think there's a different levels of behavior that people can think about and attack from the scope of influence they've got, right? If you're a training and development professional, it may just be a person feels like they've got 3 new pieces of knowledge they can use successfully on the job. That's a great behavior to drive. Somebody in a different role might have the power to really focus on retention versus attrition.
I love it. That's why I love talking to you. You always make it easy for me to understand. From the perception point of view, and as we were talking at the beginning, you know, employee net promoter was coming into head about the setting expectations in the right places, but emotions being one of the most important drivers of perception, and we're hearing emotional intelligence more and more, you know, and it's an important trait in leaders. What should it be limited to leaders? That kind of, you know, shouldn't we be putting that out throughout the organization to help us all as people to have better emotional intelligence in the organization?
Yeah, no, right. And I think there's a few different barriers that come into place in terms of like thinking emotionally inside organizations. A lot of times companies think it's soft and fuzzy and soft and fuzzy things they don't like to do. But oftentimes we don't have a vocabulary to talk about it, right? And that's often a first step to start to engage people in thinking about how are they feeling? How are they making others feel? What do we need to change so we're having others feel the way we want them to feel? So even just thinking about what's the vocabulary of emotions we want to be creating in our organization? Do we want employees to feel cared for? Do we want them to feel confident in their ability to be successful here? But, you know, a first step may be thinking about what are the emotions we're trying to create, testing that, watching some of the feedback they're already getting and seeing, I mean, especially if you have comment data coming in through surveys, or if you're sitting down with, you know, little employee focus groups or smaller teams of people, listen to the words they're using, read the words they're sharing in survey comments. They're going to tell you, the emotions that are making them feel great, and you're going to see some of the emotions that are making them feel not so great about being an employee there. And they're starting to think about, how do we create more of the great? What's an emotion that might be missing that we're not hearing from employees that we wish we did? What are some emotions we don't want people to feel at all when they're at work? Or a clear path, if they're feeling unsafe, insecure, uncared for, neglected, how do we help them know what path they can go to? And how are we monitoring to make sure that if they don't know the path, we somehow can get them what they need? And so I think it starts with a vocabulary and being thoughtful. It's absolutely measurable. You can ask questions of people about how they're feeling. But I think it starts with what's the language we want to use to talk about it. And there's data out there. There's lots of data out there that EX professionals can draw on to make the case upwards that we need to be caring about how people are feeling. We have it in the CX side. We see it in the EX side, you know, where, you know, people who feel appreciated, much more likely to stay at work, right? There's a lot of different examples of where we can see that data of emotions that are being created, resulting in types of behaviors we want to see that help the business.
And I suppose the last question for me, really, considering your expertise in this field, have you seen anything good, bad, long-lasting impact of what we're all going through right now? Is there anything, any insight that you can offer us from your perspective?
I mean, so many things. I think, one that I've experienced and I've heard from others, right? So anecdotal, not deep, broad research based, is the humanness that has emerged despite the virtual connections, the humanness that people are seeing in bosses, humanness that they're seeing in teammates, engaging in them in different ways. And I think that's a good thing. And I think, when we get, quote, back to normal, like not losing some of the connections we really worked hard to build because we're in separate places. Let's keep those connections and not like lose what we've done in this time.
Brilliant. I echo that wholeheartedly. And I think probably I'm not, because it's about 1 o'clock, I think, in Florida right now, or 1:30. Yeah. But thank you so much for your time. We're going to obviously put this on demand tomorrow for people to access it, and obviously go through the slides as well. And just thank you so much for your whole series.
It's, what a great thing to do. So thanks to you and everybody else who's a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. To everybody else that's part of it, because I do the easy thing, getting on the screen there. So thank you so much, and stay safe in Florida, and we'll speak soon.
Be well.
Take care. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.